You know, Penelope and I have been wondering, is it possible to design a snake rack that's both convenient for the keeper, but also convenient for the animal? Meaning that it's enriching and maybe even naturalistic, and maybe even bioactive. I'm wondering, and I'm gonna try to design a bioactive snake rack. So there's a few things we gotta solve, and the biggest one being that I don't want a naturalistic setup. I wanna go full bioactive, and you can't have bioactive without live plants. So I gotta find a way to keep plants alive in what's basically a completely dark dresser drawer. I'm starting out with these V70 snake tubs, which are a pretty good mid-sized sedan, but they're not really designed for what we're trying to do. So I gotta make some modifications. If you've watched my build videos before, you know that I really don't have any of the tools that I need for anything at any time ever. So I'm using a steak knife to carve out basically like a little window in the side of this bin. These tubs are great, but they're designed to have a gap in the top for airflow. And that's a problem because Penelope is a pretty skinny gal and she could definitely slip through this. So what I'm doing is I'm taking plastic from an old build that I kind of carved into these little haphazard pieces, and I'm hot gluing it to the bottom to give it a bit of lift. It's escape proof, but now there's no airflow, so I'll be drilling holes in the side of the bin. I'll also be drilling holes in the top of the rack itself. When I water the plants, I'll need it to dry out as quickly as possible because African house snakes really don't need that much humidity. That little mesh window is for lighting. I'll be lighting it from the side, sort of aquaponics, post-apocalyptic urban garden style. And on that note, I think it's finally time to start planting. For plants, I'm using Photonia. They don't get very tall, but there's not a lot of head height in the rack, so I think it works out well. To be safe, I'm removing as much soil as possible and rinsing the roots just in case there are any pest or hitchhikers hiding. For substrate, I'm using the BioDudes Terra Firma and mixing in some biodegradables, leaf litter, and a bit of moist spag moss. You might have noticed that I'm not using a drainage layer, and this is on purpose. African house snakes don't really like a soaking wet environment, so this should be allowed to totally dry out in between mistings and should really never be accumulating any water. I don't want to ruin the ending, but this didn't work out exactly as I was thinking. Months have gone by and I'm not really liking what I'm seeing. Some of these Photonia are definitely starting to die off, which kind of sucks because I'm watering 1 to 2 times a week, which is more than enough to keep Penelope's humidity in check. I think I'm going to have to pivot to some other species of plants. My first backup plan is to use some oat seeds. I saw a video on microgreens grown in a rack system and it kind of inspired this. I know it's like a totally different plant, but maybe they'll take off, maybe not, but luckily I've got one more definite backup plan up my sleeve. Pothos are indestructible. I mean, they need low light, low water, or high light and high water. They don't care. So I think they're perfect. But we still need someone to eat all the poop, and it's not going to be me, so I introduce you to our cleanup crew. The cleanup crew is the most important part of a bioactive setup because without it, it literally wouldn't work. So I am proud to introduce you to my little colony of powder orange isopods, and I've also got some Porcilio saber. I think they were gifted to me, so I'm not totally sure, to be honest. And of course, I've got little springtails here, and they love to eat mold, and together they make an incredible team. The only thing left to do now is to let it marinate for a bit and establish itself, and forget you've been filming the video for a month and a half and then come back to it over winter break. And by that time, hopefully Penelope's ready to go in and I found a nice little acoustic royalty-free soundtrack to throw in the background. Oh, that's perfect. If you've made it this far, seriously, thank you so much. A like would mean a lot, and a subscription would mean that I'm going to come and give you some isopods to eat. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.